Hi everybody and welcome back to the tasting room. Well, it's about that time again. I've accumulated a number of empty bottles and it's time to share them all with you in another empties video and let you know which ones I would repurchase and which ones will not be repurchased. So let's get started. We'll start with the Scotch whiskies today. First up, this one was a newer one by the Balvenie year or two ago. I think maybe 2 years ago. This is the Balvenie, the Sweet Toast of American Oak. So this one was actually pretty good. This was created by their new apprentice master distiller. I forget what her name is. Sure, it's on here somewhere. Kelsey McKechnie, maybe? Yes. You know, this was an interesting one. What they did for these is they took old bourbon barrels and put a slow toast on them to caramelize the interior of the barrel to draw out more caramels and more of that bourbon flavor. So yeah, this was a good one. Next two empties we have for you are both from the Bruclottie. The Port Charlotte Scottish Barley, heavily peated, and the PC10, heavily peated. So these are both, and really everything from the Bruichladdich is pretty spot on. They are a fantastic distillery, and they really do these peated Islay single malts very, very well. They're always very well balanced. Nice and smoky, good flavors, just very, very good. I'll definitely be repurchasing probably the PC10 for sure. They have other varieties out that I'd like to review. This is the Scottish barley. I know they've got the Islay barley. The Islay barley. And then I'm not sure if I ever reviewed the classic Lottie, and that one is actually an unpeated. So that was a little bit different, but also very, very good in its own right. Next empty here, the Glenmorangie Quinta Ruban or Quinta Ruban. Not sure how to pronounce that, but that is how you pronounce Glenmorangie. This is their port cask finish. This one was, I don't know, pretty standard. I would say, I mean, if you're just starting out, this is a good, maybe a good starter Scotch whiskey. It's got some nice sweet notes from the port, but it's not overly complex. You're not going to get a lot of peat out of this. So it's a good one to kind of open the door into the world of Scotch whiskey. As for me personally, I probably won't be repurchasing this one just because there's so much else out there, and I like to experiment and explore. Now, the last Scotch I have for you today is the Aberfeldy 12-year. So this one actually surprised me because you don't find too many single malt Scotch whiskeys nowadays for under $50. I mean, you've got your blended scotches like your Johnny Walkers and things of that nature that you can find for a reasonable price tag, but they're usually not so much worth drinking. But you don't typically find a decent single malt under $50, and I think this was actually in the high 30s, if I'm not mistaken. You know, say $36 or $39, something in that general neighborhood. And it was actually very, very drinkable. Now, it's only 40% alcohol. I typically like a Scotch to be a little bit more higher octane, but you know, again, for what you're paying, it's very, very good. You know, like I say, you don't find a single malt for that cheap of a price, and certainly not a 12-year-old single malt. So, you know, again, if you're looking to explore, to start exploring into Scotch whiskey, this is it's not a bad one to check out, just because it's not gonna break the bank. And as for me, I mean, this is one that I could go back to and keep as a table scotch. You know, and maybe something for guests who don't necessarily appreciate some of the more expensive trams out there. So yeah, I probably will end up repurchasing this one. Before we move on back to the States, I do have one Irish whiskey here. This is the Connemara, peated single malt. And this is not the cask strength. This one is only their standard original 40% variety. The reason I like Connemara is, you know, I don't like a whole lot of Irish whiskeys out there. They just tend to be a little bit too thin for me. You know, Irish it's always triple distilled, and I find a lot of them are a little lacking in flavor. You know, there are some exceptions to that, like the Green Spot that I've always liked, and I've always liked Connemara because it's a peated Irish whiskey. So I mean, you have that extra dimension, that extra flavor. You know, again, this one only being 80 proof is not going to go overboard on flavor. I mean, it's still a little bit thin, but it's a nice, very drinkable Irish whiskey. You know, and this one's not going to break the bank either. This one's in probably the high 40s, low 50s. You know, which is maybe a little bit overpriced for what you're getting, but that's what you get when you're buying from overseas. So. Okay, sticking with the theme of whiskeys for now, we're going to move on to bourbons. Recently emptied another bottle of the Woodford Reserve Double Oaked, and that's actually what's in my glass right now. And this one is just, I keep coming back to this one just because it's just so flavorful. You know, what they do is kind of like in that Sweet Toast of American Oak that I was talking about earlier. They take a barrel and they slow toast the inside of it, and their normal Woodford Reserve will go into this next slow toasted barrel, so hence, you know, double oaked. You know, go into that second barrel for I think another 9 weeks, and just picks up a whole lot of extra flavor. It's just very, very rich. This one here is just a hair over 90 proof, so it's a good solid proof. And again, lots and lots of flavor, so I will definitely keep repurchasing this one as long as they keep making it. Next up, we have a bourbon from New York. Yes, you don't have to be in Kentucky to make a bourbon. You just have to be in the United States, and there's a whole bunch of other criteria you have to meet. But a bourbon can indeed come from outside of Kentucky, and this one here comes from Rosendale, New York. So this is one that was recommended to me by a friend of a friend here, and it's 91 proof. Aged 10 years in American oak, and it's pretty good. When I got this bottle, I think it was in the mid $50 range, and I thought it was a little bit high for what it was, for what you were getting out of this bottle here. And now I just saw it on the shelf for close to 70. So now, I mean, to me, it's way overpriced at this point, but so I probably won't personally buy another bottle, but I wasn't sad about this one. I mean, it was a very good bourbon. Like I said, I'm always willing to try something new. So. Next one up, back to Kentucky. This is Johnny Drum. So Johnny Drum is actually made by the Willett Distillery in Bardstown, and that's for anyone who watches my channel. That's one of my favorite distilleries in Kentucky. You know, a very small craft operation. They do everything by hand. This one here is 101 proof. You know, and they're at Willett. They have 8 or 10 different labels that they produce, this being one of them. You know, and it's it's rich, it's flavorful, and it's relatively cheap. You know, again, if you know where to look. And I've seen this one for 30, and I've seen this one for 50. So I mean, use your judgment when you're at the store. But I mean, it's a good, solid bourbon. You know, very, very Kentucky. Just one of those flagship bourbons. You know, when you think about the bourbon signature flavor profile, this is what you get. All right, and then finally in the bourbon category, we've got the Knob Creek Single Barrel. And this is the Single Barrel Reserve. This is 9 years old, and it's bottled at 120 proof. So this one definitely puts some hair on your chest, but very rich, very flavorful. If I remember correctly, lots of wood, lots of dried cherries, as some notes. Spicy, even a little bit smoky. But this is a good one. I can't for the life of me remember what you'd pay for this bottle. But it's at least worth it to try it once. I mean, it's a good bottle of bourbon here. Last whiskey on the list is also from the Woodford Reserve. This is not actually a bourbon though. This one here is a Kentucky Straight Malt Whiskey. So Woodford, they have this series where they have their bourbon, they have their rye, and then they did a wheat whiskey and they did a malted barley whiskey here, and this is the malted barley whiskey. So this one was pretty good. It's got a little bit different feel than your traditional bourbon, a little bit different different flavor profile. So if you're looking to change it up, looking for something a little bit different, this is not a bad way to go here. This was 90.4 proof, and I'm not sure what else to say about it. It was decent. Okay, well that's it on the whiskey front. Next, I do have one rum for you. This is since this was introduced to me by my girlfriend here. This has been my favorite rum. This is Flor de Cana. They make a number of different varieties. There's a 4-year, a 7-year, the 12-year, which is what this is here. There's an 18 and a 25. And boy, everything they do is just fantastic. I never knew, before I knew Flor de Cana, I never knew that there was a rum you could sip like a whiskey and just be happy about it. But this is that rum. And now, unfortunately, I can't find this anymore because the distributors that distribute to all the liquor stores in my area I don't know who it is, if it's Southern Wine and Spirits or what, but they're not carrying this anymore. So I can't find it. So, Southern, if you're listening, Flor de Cana, I need it back in the Chicagoland area, please. Anyway, I do have a little bit left of the 18 year, and I'm just kind of saving it and savoring it, but the 12 year finally kicked. Hopefully one day I'll be able to find more. Okay, next I have 2 tequilas that I was able to kick before the end of the summer season. First one here is Siete Leguas. This is the Anejo. So this was a very decent tequila. I think I would repurchase this one. It wasn't too expensive, and it had a lot of good flavors. As anyone who knows me knows, I'll typically go for the Anejo, the longer aged tequilas, over the reposados, and certainly over the platas, the unaged versions, which I just don't understand. This one's bottled at 40%, as I think most tequila is. Well, no, decent in a cocktail, not going to break the bank. Better for me sipping most Anejo whiskey tequilas, but very good. And then the other tequila I have for you here is the Milagro Anejo. Again, another one here, bottled at 40% or 80 proof. And an Anejo, so, you know, there's that extra flavor that you'll get from the wood, from the aging in the oak. You know, and I gotta say, I finished this bottle quite a while ago, and I reviewed it a long time ago. So I don't quite remember the notes you're going to get from this one, but I do have a review out there somewhere, so feel free to browse the channel and go find it if you are curious about this one. But I don't remember being turned off about it, so I would say that I would probably go ahead and repurchase this one. Alright, finishing up the day with a couple of gins here. First, we've got another one from the Revivalist. This is the Summertide Expression. This is from the Brandywine Branch Distillery out in Chester County, Pennsylvania. You know, and as I had mentioned in my review of their gins, they have 5 expressions of gins that I know of. They have that Dragon Dance, and then they have their 4 odes to the seasons. And this was their summer one. And notes of jasmine, of course, and in there summer grasses, citrus, coriander, peppermint. You know, a nice blend of botanicals. You know, good. I always like a nice, flavorful gin. Something a little bit different, a little bit more out of the box than your standard Bombay Sapphire, which I love. You know, but that's more for me a gin and tonic kind of a gin, you know, and this is a drink on its own or in a straight up martini or something. So yes, would definitely repurchase any of their products so far. And the last ones I have for you are 2 different gins out from the St. George Distillery in California. This is their Dry Rye Gin and the Botanivore. You know, and they have 3 gins that I know of. They have these 2, and then they also have the Terroir, which is with the greenish label. I've never been real big on the Terroir. I mean, that's very much tastes like a liquid pine tree to me. But the Dry Rye Gin has some interesting flavors and aromas, just a little bit different from your standard run of the mill. And their Botanivore is one of my top favorite gins of all time. Just a ton of flavor, a ton of different botanicals, and just goes fantastic in a straight up martini. It says here this one has 19 different botanicals. Lush, floral, spicy, earthy. You know, and this one definitely stands up well on its own. You know, as far as these go, I will pick up a dry rye every now and again, but the Botanivore is one that I keep repurchasing and repurchasing and repurchasing. You know, I do like to branch out and try different things now and again, but it's always nice to have a good, solid martini gin on standby, just for when the mood hits. So that's all I have for you today, folks. Those are all my empty bottles. I'll be happy to get these out into the recycle bin. So thanks for spending some time with me today. If you do like these kinds of videos, be sure to let me know in the comment section or hit that thumbs up button over there. If you're not already a member to my channel, go ahead and hit that button and subscribe. And then after you do, make sure you ding that little bell next to the subscribe button and make sure you get notifications of new videos that come out. New videos come out on the weekends, and I would hate for you to miss one, so go ahead and do that for me, and I will see you again next week, right here on The Tasting Room.